Welcome to Collegiate Conversations, a space for conversations of all shapes and sizes coming out of the Collegiate Church Network. Today, we are kicking off or continuing a series of conversations on health, being healthy and becoming healthier in all areas: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, you name it. And our featured guest here is Nick Modrzejewski, and we've brought him in to share about how he has pursued health through professional triathlons and professional athletics. So Nick, thank you so much for being here with us. Could you start just sharing a little bit about yourself, where you are currently serving in Collegiate, how long you've been there, and then maybe briefly just how you've gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be considered a healthy individual or someone to talk about it. If you don't know me, I'm at the University of Illinois. I serve currently as pastor of Illini Life Christian Fellowship. So we've been around for a long time. I have been on staff for, I've celebrated 10 years this summer. So part of the staff program for over 10 years, been pastoring for the last few years here at Illinois. But I've been here on the campus of the University of Illinois for 20 years now. So I started as a student, completed my undergrad, I have a degree in electrical engineering. I worked for the university for 5 years and sort of bivocational ministry, serving in Illini Life, where I worked and discipled students. And then, yeah, about 10 years ago, decided to go full-time on staff. And that's sort of my ministry journey. I started running marathons, actually trained for my first marathon at Estes Park LT in 2005 with some friends. So trained in the mountains, then came back to the flatlands and ran a marathon in the fall of 2005, and have been hooked on endurance sports ever since.
Wow, so you got the high elevation training for your marathon and then flat landed the race.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that went pretty well?
I was happy with it. I didn't really know what to expect. I had some friends that had run marathons, and I was pretty pleased with my time. And immediately, just sort of by nature, I thought I could go faster, and that has been the continued response every time I race. I could go faster, so that's probably why I still do it.
That's awesome. Well, we have brought you in today to talk about health, in particular physical health. I'm imagining that dovetails into other spaces with you. It's been getting to watch you from afar and learn more about what you are doing in terms of triathlons and professional running and athletics, and the coaching career you have with it has been pretty awesome. So could you start off by just sharing a bit of an overview of how you think about pursuing health in this area, and maybe even how it connects in other areas?
Yeah, I really do see it super interconnected. And as you mentioned, I on the side, I have a coaching business where I coach athletes to do predominantly Ironman triathlon. That's what I focus on, long distance triathlon.
For those who don't know, explain what entails an Ironman, what goes into that, and the distances.
Yeah, so an Ironman is a triathlon. So it's 3 sports: swim, bike, and run. And Ironman refers to the long distance 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a full 26.2 mile marathon. And you do that continuously. Clock starts when you go into the water and ends when you cross the marathon finish line. So
fantastic.
So in the coaching world, we have these, I have these tools and metrics, and we kind of quantify how your training puts stress on your body and how your body responds to that. And if you've lifted weights, you do cycles of building and resting, or there's different periods to your training, and so we can do that. But then one of the other aspects to life is just our normal daily stress. It's hard to quantify that, but our bodies respond to that. And so we reach for comfort foods, or we need more downtime to sleep or recover. A lot of us are just, the constant background stress of COVID and quarantine has really done a number on us. And so in the coaching world, I talk to my athletes a lot about how those other aspects of their life are affecting their physical, their performance in their race results. I felt that pretty strongly at my recent race, but everything's super connected. And part of what drew me to beginning endurance sports was in 2005. I was interning, at Estes Park LT, trying to discern if I should do full-time ministry. And I was really using the summer as sort of a time to seek the Lord very intentionally about that calling on my life, and trying to cultivate some other spiritual disciplines. Like went to Wilderness LT that summer, spent some time fasting, actually became a vegetarian that summer to remove meat out of my life as just a way to relook at my my view of food and what comfort foods I ate, or ways that I just sort of used food to deal with emotion or any other things. And so everything was super connected. I realized that even my eating habits could be ways that I was dealing with emotions and or covering up aspects of my life. I found it cultivated a deeper prayer life. I sometimes joke with my staff team here. I've forgotten how to pray unless I'm running in some ways, and that's almost a true statement. I find like some of my deepest clarity, or in terms of even as I prepare sermons, come when I'm running, and I can just meditate on the passage that I've been preparing to teach on. Some of the moments of just the Lord's presence and clarity in prayer just come as I've had some time to warm up and be out on the road and set aside distractions of the rest of life. And so training facilitated, even early on in 2005, a deeper spiritual walk for me that just helped me in that time of intentionally pursuing, should I do ministry full time? And maybe you know the answer. I said yes, and I'm here today for that. So.
That's awesome. So it sounds like it's a very interconnected. It's not just the physical health. This is just a space where a lot of different elements of health are coming together for you. And you've experienced freedom and growth in. That's pretty awesome. You mentioned there in your story, I don't know if you were going to go there later, but you mentioned the most recent triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
You share a little bit with that? How did that? I know I tracked from afar. It sounded brutal, but your response that you posted online was so humble and moving. I'd love for people to just, who aren't aware of that, just to hear from you.
Yeah. So to train for an Ironman, it's really a year-long endeavor. And so like many of us in January last year, I was setting out to train for the best season ever, right? And I had all these races that were going to prep for it. And I had an Ironman I was going to do in Madison, Wisconsin in September, and then Florida in November. And that was a pretty typical schedule for me to sort of train through the year. And then COVID hit and a lot of things were sidelined. And I watched sort of, weeks and months unfold and races cancel. And then we reached August and it looked like Florida was going to happen still. And so I was trying to scramble and get ready. And luckily I was fortunate enough, the race did happen. I felt like it could be done safely. They had a lot of health restrictions put in place, mass social distancing, everything was outdoors. Triathlon is already a lonely distance sport anyways. So it sort of is not much different racing than being at home and training. So I went and raced and had some of my training numbers were saying I would have one of the best races I've ever had. My run pace was faster than it ever had been. My bike was looking great. And I was fairly confident I was going to accomplish the swim despite some restrictions that I was having with swim availability. And then the race started and I felt pretty great coming out of the water. I felt good. I was a little disappointed. I was about 3 minutes slower than I thought I would be, but it turns out everybody was. It was pretty typical. And then I was on the bike and I was feeling really good and seeing the metrics I wanted to see, and just kind of a flat, desolate, lonely course. And I know that because I've raced in this course before. But around mile 80, I started to feel just real discouraged, really felt probably feeling pretty just down. And some of the lies that I can believe from past racing is I usually lose too much ground on the bike and it's hard to make up and end up where I wanted to, or where my goal was for the race. And so I know I just fully embraced those lies and thought I'm losing the race right now. And which is a funny thing to say when you're still 30 miles out from finishing the bike and then a marathon on top of that. And so but I mentally, I sort of caved to that, and I didn't really have the mental strength to pull myself out or realize that I was in a negative place. And my performance started to suffer. I was able to get through the bike. And for the first time ever in my racing career, I got off the bike and put on my running shoes and really thought about quitting. I thought I just do not even want to do this. I don't have it. I've lost already. And I had really a defeated mentality. And maybe it was the Lord, maybe it was pride, maybe it was my friends that I knew were watching me and tracking me online. I decided it would be disrespectful not to complete the marathon. So I kind of, with a begrudging spirit, headed out and started running. And then I kind of threw a pity party for about 16 miles on the run, just feeling bad about the race and just wanting it to be over with and not really enjoying one of the things that is brings me so much joy in my life, just running and enjoying being in creation and worshiping. And so about mile 16, it felt like a light switch, and I felt like I could be in a thankful place, felt like I could glorify the Lord and thank Him for the ability to move, even in a crazy year like this, that I was able to race, which was something I had not expected. And so I was able to complete the race, and disappointed with my overall result, largely because I spent a long time in a very, well, kind of throwing a temper tantrum, maybe is how I would describe it.
Wow. There's so much in that, especially in this year. I know, I don't know how many people are triathletes or training for huge things like that, but a lot of what you described feels like 2020 in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
And just that dark place that and the phrase you said, you believed the lies, and you were already losing the race. Man, I feel like I've been in moments like that this year. I imagine others have as well. And you said it was thanks. There was that, 16 miles in the run, which these numbers are just crazy for, most people to be thinking of. And that's after a 112-mile bike and 2-mile swim. So it was thanks that led you out of that. Could you share a little bit about that? Because I think there's something for all of us in that moment of, in the darkness, you turned a corner with the Lord.
Yeah, I mean, so much in quarantine. I feel like thankfulness has been my path forward. It has been my route out, and so it doesn't surprise me that that's how my heart turned back towards gratitude, towards worship. So I mentioned so often I feel like clarity in prayer when I'm out running, and that largely centers around just being thankful that I am alive, that I can move, that my life is where it is now compared to where it was when I started, that I have the ability to complete an Ironman or a triathlon, or just be out training for the day. So often I find that's just the pattern of Scripture. The Psalms they're so rich with reminding ourselves of who God is and giving thanks for that, and that sort of steers our hearts back to Him. And that's been typical in my life.
That's so good. What a good word. And it did not go as you planned, but am I right in this is your 11th official race, full Ironman completed?
Yeah, that was my 11th Ironman that I've completed. So.
Which, if you add the mileage up, that's 1,500 miles by your own exertion in race level conditions, not even including all the training that goes into it. That's amazing. What an inspiration. Thanks for sharing. What are some of the things that have aided you in pursuing health in this area of physical fitness and athletics? Things that have aided you, things that have hindered. What have you learned along the way that would be helpful for us?
Yeah, I mean, well, Jay does incredible feats of strength too, right? But all of us, anybody that completes anything that sounds monumental, it's all consistency. It's small decisions that add up over time. It's small steps. Like long ago, probably around 2005, when I completed my first marathon, I adopted a mindset of what am I going to do? What am I going to do today to accomplish my goal, rather than am I going to do something today? And it was a very subtle shift for me, but I used to wake up and think, am I going to run today or run tomorrow? And my goal to complete a marathon meant I needed to run today. The goal was big enough that I had to start taking small steps every day towards it and having a plan for that. So consistency is huge.
Nick, I love what you said there about the mindset shift. It is so subtle, but it is. Have you seen that play out in other areas of your life or ministry, the same kind of mentality? And if so, could you share a story of how that's impacting?
Yeah, that's great. Uh, well, like let's take sermon prep, something a lot of us do, right? Or consider maybe writing a paper, right? You might do the same, but like if I think about, if I don't stop and think about the individual steps, the process of going from Monday to preaching on Sunday can feel overwhelming. The amount of work, trying to wrap my head around scripture, what am I actually going to say, having that outline, and then actually presenting that material. But instead, I chop it up into smaller steps, right? We accomplish it by one step at a time. And so I immerse myself in the passage. I think about what does the Lord have to say here? What's this revealing about God? And I try to fully wrap my head around that. And then I started, what's that mean for us today, right? And we move it forward one step at a time. It's small progress towards the bigger goal. That was huge for me when I started teaching. I was always at a loss of how am I going to write this sermon, right? And so I started to piece it apart into smaller and smaller steps. I think about helping, looking for growth in my life or in my staff team that I'm managing. Where are we trying to head to, and what do we need to do? What are the intermediate steps to get there along the way? And that's exactly what we're doing when we're training, when we're trying to perform at some physical task. We're breaking it down into fundamentals and building on those.
That's awesome. That's really good. How are you seeking to grow in this area now? What do you feel like you're learning? And then is there any advice or counsel you could just give to Collegiate based on what God has taught you in this area so far?
Yeah. Well, as I was sharing, sort of that mental aspect was huge in my recent race. I think I've sort of come back from racing a week and a half ago, and I've been really just trying to sit with the Lord and thinking about my mental life and my outlook. I tend to be a very optimistic person. I clearly wasn't in the race, and so I want to understand and try to grow from what was going on there. Is there sort of background baggage that I need to deal with and work with? How is that affecting my family life, my ministry, the staff I'm invested in? Because I know it's all connected. And so if it showed up there on the race course, I imagine it's showing up elsewhere in my life. And so I want to really sit with the Lord and try to clear my mental, or get healthy mentally, because I think I wasn't when I was racing. So
That's really good. Are there specific questions that you or resources that you've turned to that help aid in those processes, or even just thinking through I'm thinking for like the broader collegiate, that's a great step. Are there just tangibles that could be helpful that we could offer to them?
yeah, absolutely. So one of my staff just sent me a lot of us were into Enneagram. Maybe that's past. I'm kind of usually behind the curve. One of my staff just sent me an article about Enneagram types and how we make decisions or value different aspects of things as we're making decisions. And she thinks it's going to be really helpful in our conversation as a staff team about how we have conflict over when we're making decisions. I think that's a huge resource for me to start to look at my mental health and see what are the things that I'm valuing that others maybe, or the things I'm not valuing that others are. And so I can start to look at that. So reading about Enneagram was a really helpful thing for me to help to bring some language to my inner world and express that to others. So I think there's still a lot of fruit there in the Enneagram. Let's hopefully this is for my
great. I wonder if we could get a link to that article or just even a copy, and we'll be able to put it in the show notes or like the post in the group.
Great.
So that'd be awesome. Any other thoughts you want to share in just in general, or admonishment, encouragement? I know we're going to have some kind of quick hitters here towards the end. But before I go there, from the whole area of take your role as a coach who is passionate about physical health and helping people move forward. And what would you just encourage collegiate, those who are either actively engaged, thinking about it, or others who, kind of feel that nudge or inkling, but don't know quite what to do? Could you just, as a coach, just speak to all of us in this realm?
Yeah, absolutely. If I haven't sold you that it's all interconnected, I don't know how else to do it. It is your spiritual life, your physical life. God created us all interconnected. And so if you could think about what is 30 minutes of activity you could do, if it's just walking around your block for 30 minutes, if it's you're going to ride your bike for 30 minutes, or you're going to walk to the office today, or with lockdowns happening, what's some way that you can get out into sunshine? You are more like a plant than you think, and God uses that analogy of growing plants often in Scripture for a purpose. And so what is something 30 minutes is attainable, I think, for all of us, and you can break it up however 15 minutes at a time. Walk to the office and walk home. I can almost promise you, I'll promise you will feel better. You will I think you will be more in tune with God. You will feel more spiritually refreshed if you can invest 30 minutes at least a day in your physical activity. So that would be my tangible next step for everyone.
Awesome. You heard it there. I encourage you all, Collegiate, listen to this man, his words of advice, test it out, see what happens, see if God meets you in that space, how you feel. I do believe, just as he has said, that God will meet you in that space and you will feel better, leads to a healthier life. So Nick, thanks for just being vulnerable, sharing your story of your most recent race. I know it didn't go quite as you wanted, and just appreciate that. Appreciate how you are. I think the thing that sticks out to me is 2005, you kind of made some of these changes of commitment. 15 years later, here you are, still self-disciplined, getting out there, cranking, and believing you can get better as a whole. I think that alone speaks volumes to us in this area of spiritual health. So thanks so much for all that you've shared. It's been a gift to receive from you. Before we let you go, we will have some quick hitting questions where you can just give a short, sweet answer. It don't have to be relating to anything we've talked about here so far. And so number one, who or what is inspiring you right now?
My son. The person motivating me the most in life right now is my son.
How old?
He's going to be 3 next month.
Awesome. Love it. And what's his name?
His name's Nathan.
Very cool. Who is someone else in Collegiate that we should talk to, and what should we talk to them about?
I think you should talk to Mike Clunky and talk to him about leadership health. He's helped Illini Life a lot in the last year get healthy in our leadership. So.
Awesome. Mike Clunky, leadership health. All right. With no explanation or context, what is one song or artist that you would recommend right now?
Rock the Casbah by The Clash.
All right. Say it one more time.
Rock the Casbah by The Clash. It's a classic.
All right. Fantastic. And lastly, again, with no explanation or context, what is something that you think everyone should try at least once?
Tofu.
Nice. Tofu. There you have it. Nick Modrzejewski, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for leading such a self-disciplined life in the area of physical health and fitness, and love watching you, the pursuits you have, the goals you keep pushing yourself in terms of professional athletics and triathlons. And thanks for sharing how you have grown in not just the physical area of health, but all the other areas interconnected today. We are inspired. We appreciate it. And it's been an honor to be with you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. There you go, Collegiate. Have a good day. Take his word, 30 minutes, test it out, engage with God, and see what he does through that. God bless you all.